So I want to welcome our viewers to this first video newsletter of the Rolf Research Foundation. I'm Eric Jacobson. I'm a structural integration practitioner, and I'm currently the president of the Rolf Research Foundation. And we are very lucky today to have Professor Robert Schleip uh, take some time out of his busy schedule to talk to us. Just so you understand Robert's background, he was one of the very early trained practitioners of structural integration in Germany, trained in the tradition of Dr. Ida Rolf, and he practiced for many years, and then he became a teacher of structural integration. And then he got interested in fascia, which is the tissue in the human body that structural integrators believe mediates the changes. Uh, he did a PhD in physiology, studied the contractile and some of the viscoelastic properties of fascia, and he got an award in the year he finished for the best dissertation in physiology. Then Robert and I met around organizing the very first Fascia Research Congress. I think it was 2007. And he's been deeply involved in every Fascia Research Congress since then. He was one of the founding members of the Fascia Research Society, where he continues to play a central role. And on top of all that, he's currently professor at the University of Ulm, where he supervises graduate students in their theses and dissertation research, some of whom are studying the effects of structural integration. So we couldn't hope to have a more central figure in structural integration and fascia research. Thanks for taking the time, Robert, because what is this, the 10th Fascia Research Congress coming up in New Orleans in just 5 days? And Robert's deeply involved in that. So he's a busy guy. And thanks for making the time.
Well, if I could, I would make you a hero at least as much as you have been describing now. But the hero is Helen James, that both of us will talk about it. And I'm very much looking forward to be able to shed some light on what a great contribution we have in the structural integration community, thanks to her life work.
Yeah, would you please tell us something about who she is and what she did and about the extraordinary trove of data she created?
Yeah, I think I met her even before you, Pedro. Hard to believe. I'm scratching my backhand, but it was already several years before the 2007 first Fascia Research Congress at Harvard Medical School, when she and I had plans to co-teach a basic Rolfing class together. I think that those were some of the earliest classes where I was not an assistant, but the main instructor under the umbrella of the Rolfer Institute. And I wanted to have her as my assistant because our brains were already ticking very much like more scientifically oriented practitioners. And I had met her during several of the meetings. I already recognized that she's an unusual character. But I was very surprised when in the last few years I realized that she is not only an exceptional scientist and practitioner, but many other hero abilities that she had about her time at the army, etc. I only found out later. But anyway, we were both looking forward to co-teach a basic roughing class. And unfortunately, I think that was the only class that was canceled in my schedule due to low enrollment.
Mm.
And we were both frustrated because we wanted to co-teach and we had some great ideas how to do it. And then the split of the Guild versus the Rolf Institute happened soon after. And then we were no longer under the same umbrella. So that's as long as I know her. I knew that she was a teaching upper level physiotherapy professor at a university level where she taught physiotherapists how to apply scientific standards. And so she did very precise range of motion goniometer assessments muscle force assessments, and other functional assessment with all of her Rolfing clients. And I wanted to have that precision in my Rolfing class. So that was my beginning with her.
And tell us a bit about how she accumulated this trove of data.
Yeah, so this is another friend and hero of us, Tom Findley, who has been a very instrumental figure. And he also had a deep appreciation of Helen. I'm not sure if she Rolfed him, the original, no, but there was a more personal relationship between them as well. Besides that, he used to be the scientific director at a very early time of the Rolf Institute. And he had on his laptop several of the data, a whole list of data that they had already published a small part of. So there was an early publication from Helen James and Tom Findley on neck range of motion improvement in several hundred Rolfing practitioners. And we were all very excited, and they had meticulously measured it and published it. But he said, Robert, there are thousands more data available if you can access them, if you can contribute, because they have some abbreviations that I don't understand, but that would be another treasure. Now, unfortunately, Tom Findley died a few years ago, and with his widow, Patricia Findley, I got access to this treasure, to the laptop data. And then it took me a few years with the help of Katja Bartsch and Andreas Brandl. They are both one of my highest adored former students, but now they are surpassing me here in Germany in terms of their research skills. But we spent several days feeling like Sherlock Holmes. What could it be that she was measuring here? And we only proceeded if we were damn sure. So we finally accessed more data, and that was the first publication that we did as a group, maybe 3 years ago. And now, just a couple of weeks ago, we submitted the final data, and they will soon be finished. So they will soon be published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine. That's a high-ranking journal. And Helen James will be one of the authors. She's now over 90 years old. So I felt like this is a very nice gesture of gratitude from our small German group to honor her and to give her something back that she has contributed to our community.
And Robert, just so our viewers understand, this is data that she recorded over many years of her clinical practice.
23 years.
Ah,
She had more than 800 patients, but we finally accepted 520 patients into our statistical analysis based on quality criteria that we had. So all of them had completed the 10 series. And with all of them, she followed a very detailed protocol. So over 23 years, she did certain measurements with them, but she never changed her protocol. That was one of the critique of the reviewers. You know, standards have changed. The way how you measure leg lengths has been different 20 years ago. No, she wrote it down exactly how she measured it because she was a scientist and she knew you have to do always the same protocol for assessment. So that is a very unusual databases. 23 years, more than 500 patients. Of course, we didn't have a control group, so we cannot say what is cause and effect and what are the mechanical interventions of the Rolfers, what is the whole educational setting and the expectation factors and other lifestyle changes that may have contributed. But now we documented 5 more improvements. So it was straight leg ranks, hip flexion ability that significantly improved, not in all of them, but in a high significant amount of these more than 500 patients. Same for knee flexion ability. And then she did very interesting breathing capacity measurements. So chest diameter at normal breath and at full inspiration, following a standard protocol. And they had also improved. And that speaks for us Rolfers. She had a measurement for trunk symmetry in terms of side bending. And there was a significant improvement as well. So that has been a very nice contribution. Of course, it's almost impossible to publish something where you don't have ethics approval for a clinical study. And that is the only study that I'm aware of where we convinced the editor to say this needs to be studied. If she would do that study today, she would register it as a clinical trial. But these data are so valuable that we need to publish them, and that finally was convincing.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you and your team did all that work. I mean, I know how many hours and days it takes to
It
assemble that
was
kind of.
fun. You would have had fun. We had all these lists and to use our combined brains to figure out which one can we accept and what did she measure and what was the protocol.
I didn't realize how deep her scientific background was and how careful
Yeah,
she was with these
yeah,
measurements. So it's
yeah,
really very valuable data.
yeah. And then we found out that there is a Wikipedia page on her, and there were several newspapers reporting on it. For me, she was just a gifted physiotherapist and rolfing co-instructor and a colleague in terms of her structural integration background. But then we found out that she had been a hero already in American history because as a lesbian soldier, she was kicked out of she had a high ranking career as one awarded soldier in the army. And then she outed herself and declared her sexuality, and she was kicked out of the army. And she said, "No, this should not be. This is not an acceptable reason." And then years later, she won the court case against the army, and they made a hero out of her. And they had to pay her for many decades a penalty based on that. So if you look her up on her Wikipedia page, on several of the newspaper reports, they mention in small print that she, by the way, she also was a structural integration practitioner. But her known celebrity status is based on her career as a top soldier in the army. I think she was associated with NASA also, so she did
Wow.
some top airline aircraft missions there. So this was a totally new chapter for me to learn about her. But it fits to her very humble and precision-minded mentality that I really got to respect when I looked at her data.
Yeah, that's really an amazing history.
Mm.
Robert, you and your team have done such a service to the field by getting that data and going through it and publishing so much about it. I just wanted to ask you at the end here, just what can you say about the significance for the field of structural integration as a whole of this data that you've published and these analyses on the outcomes? What does what does it mean for structural integration research as a larger field?
Well, as a small thing, that we are blessed to have such humble, dedicated, gifted geniuses in our community. She was not very much known in the structural integration community, but
Right.
that was because she didn't focus on her personality. She focused on doing good work and contributing to the greater development of structural integration. And we are very gifted to have many of these people in our community who are doing the work and to do their contributions, not to be in the limelight themselves, but because they love to contribute. So that is something where I think we are gifted. From the outcome of her work, this is a gold mine because you follow hundreds of people over 10 sessions and you focus So basically, she showed they have more symmetry, they have more breathing capacity, and they have more range of motion all over the body. And of course, if you had a small study with 20 or 30, you had to be very careful about making any causal explanations about it. But if it's hundreds of patients that you carefully examine and you are not doing cherry picking, and we saw that she did not do that. She had taken care of all the clients. And of course, there was also a smaller amount of clients where she was not satisfied with the outcome. We could see that, but she didn't kick them out. So basically, it means from hundreds of patients. So if you are considering to get the 10 series of Rolfing, uh, you will base your decision on seeing what has been the average outcome in hundreds of people who did it before. And of course, that is a meaningful thing. And she did that in a very systematic manner over such a long decade. So we know that 10 sessions of rolfing, and she did a very standard protocol. So she didn't do fancy new developments because she wanted to have a clear picture. What does rolfing, just rolfing intervention, following the recipe that she learned at the Rolf Institute? So what kind of improvements are possible? And now, thanks to her contribution, we know, yes, the contributions are very, very profound. They
Mm.
are highly significant. It's not a small amount. And we owe a lot of gratitude to Helen James for contributing that.
Well, also so much gratitude to you and your team for getting all this stuff together, and for Tom Finley. Uh, I spend a lot of time thinking about structural integration research and how to get it funded and where it can go. And this kind of a very large case series, it's a good foundation for getting clinical trials approved. You can cite that in a
Yeah,
funding application. So it's a great contribution to the field, Robert.
yeah, yeah. And we are lucky that she used very precise protocol, you know. And also thanks for your contribution to this publication. You gave us very good feedback and improvement
A little
suggestions
bit,
for it.
just a
Yeah,
little
yes,
at
yes.
the end.
Yeah,
Well, thanks so much, Robert. This is going to be of great interest to the structural integration community. And we'll post this on our Rolf Research Foundation as a newsletter. And we'll put in links to the articles you mentioned.
yeah,
No, there was a Wikipedia page. We'll try to get a link to that in there too.
yeah. Please do, please do. You will be astonished. So what a jewel she is.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about her until Tom Finley started talking years
There
ago.
we go. There we
He got
go.
the data from her.
Yeah. Such a nice networking story, where we are so much linked over the continents, and Tom Findlay gets a laptop, Patricia helps, you help. Then somebody contacts Helen that she's over 90, so she is not easily accessible, but she gave us some feedback at the time where we needed it. So it's a very nice networking success story in our community.
Yeah, and you and your group and your associates in Germany are doing so much great research. I'm very envious because, in the US, the funding situation's gotten very dire and
Yeah.
it's hard to get anything funded or going. But the
Yeah.
networking, between your group and us in the US is very fertile.
Let's continue.
Okay, Robert. Well, see you in New Orleans, just 5 days.
Yeah.
Five
Yeah.
days.
Thank you.
Thanks again.